The sun hung low over the quiet suburban street, pouring gold across trimmed lawns and white fences. Alana Brooks stood in her driveway, humming softly as she wiped down her car. It had been a long week at the hospital, and this small ritual, cleaning, breathing, letting the day fall away, was her therapy. Neighbors waved when they passed. Children rode bikes in wide circles. It was the kind of neighborhood where people said good morning and meant it. A police cruiser rolled slowly down the street. Alana noticed it but didn't think much of it. Police cars passed often enough. She returned to her work, squeezing soap into her bucket. The cruiser stopped directly in front of her house. She felt it then, that subtle tightening in her chest. The door opened, and Officer Grant stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, sunglasses hiding his eyes. His expression was already hardened, already suspicious. He called out sharply. Alana straightened. Yes, officer. We've had reports of someone suspicious in this neighborhood. She blinked, glancing around. Oh, I haven't seen anyone unusual. He stared at her driveway, at the car. Is this your residence? Yes, I live here. He didn't move. Proof. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice stayed calm. I can get my ID. She walked toward the small table near her garage where her lemonade Saturday. As she reached for her wallet, the officer stepped closer, his jaw tightening. You fit the description, he muttered. Description of what? She asked softly. Before she could process what was happening, he grabbed her plastic cup and flung its contents toward her chest. The lemonade splashed across her shirt, dripping down in sticky rivulets. The street fell silent. Maybe that'll cool you down, he said harshly. You people think you can just. Officer, she interrupted, her voice shaking but firm. I am standing in my own driveway. Her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Collins, had stepped onto her porch, horrified. A teenage boy across the street had pulled out his phone. The officer's anger seemed fueled by their stares. He moved closer, towering over her. Don't get smart with me. Alana's eyes filled with tears, not of weakness, but of humiliation. She had worked 12-hour shifts all week. She had saved lives. She had held hands in emergency rooms and whispered comfort to strangers. And here she was, treated like a criminal in front of her own home. I would like your badge number, she said quietly. That was when his radio crackled. Officer Grant, report back immediately. Confirming address on Brooks' residence. He frowned. I'm at Brooks' residence. A pause. Stand down. Repeat, stand down. You need to return to the station immediately. He hesitated, confusion flickering across his face. And officer, that homeowner is Dr. Alana Brooks. The name seemed to land heavily. Dear. The radio continued. She's the chief trauma surgeon who saved Captain Harris last month. Internal Affairs has been informed about the complaint. The officer's face drained of color. Across the street, the teenage boy lowered his phone slowly. Alana stood still, lemonade dripping onto the concrete. Officer Grant swallowed hard. His posture shifted, not aggressive now, but stunned. You're Dr. Brooks? He asked faintly. She met his gaze steadily. Yes, I am. And in that moment, the world tilted. The authority he wore like armor suddenly felt paper-thin. The woman he had tried to humiliate wasn't who he assumed. She was the very doctor who had saved one of their own. And something inside him began to crumble. Officer Grant drove back to the station in silence, his hands trembling on the steering wheel. The replay wouldn't stop, the splash of lemonade. The look in her eyes, the neighbors watching. Dr. Brooks. He had been there the night Captain Harris was rushed into surgery. After the highway collision. He remembered the fear in the station, the uncertainty. They'd said it was a miracle he survived. That miracle had a name. Alana Brooks. Back at her home, Alana changed her shirt and sat at her kitchen table. She wasn't crying anymore. The humiliation still stung, but beneath it was something deeper, weariness. A weariness she had carried since childhood. Her phone buzzed. Mrs. Collins. Sweetheart, are you all right? She smiled faintly and replied, I'm okay. But she wasn't fully okay. Later that evening, there was a knock at her door. She hesitated before opening it. Officer Grant stood there, hat in hand. He looked smaller somehow. "I shouldn't be here," he began quietly, "but I couldn't let the day end without saying something." She folded her arms, not defensive, but guarded. "Yes. I was wrong." His voice cracked slightly. "Completely wrong. I made assumptions. I acted without respect. And I humiliated you." She didn't respond immediately. "I've been on the force 12 years, he continued. "I tell myself I'm protecting people. But today, I became the threat." Alana studied him. She saw not the uniform now, but the man inside it, ashamed, shaken. "Do you know what hurt the most?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "It wasn't the drink. It wasn't even your words. It was the certainty in your eyes. You had already decided who I was." His shoulders sagged. "I work every day to save lives," she said. "Not because of titles. Not because of recognition. But because it's right. And yet I still have to prove I belong in my own driveway." Silence stretched between them. "I can't undo what I did," he said finally. "But I promise you, I will learn from it." She could have slammed the door, filed charges, let internal affairs handle him. Instead, she asked one question. "Will you?" He met her eyes. "Yes." And for the first time that day, she believed him. The department moved quickly. An internal review began. Officer Grant was placed on administrative leave. News traveled fast. The video recorded by the teenager surfaced online. It sparked outrage and conversations. But Alana refused interviews. She didn't want headlines. She wanted change. A week later, the police chief requested a meeting with her. Inside the station, tension filled the air as she entered. The chief spoke carefully. "Dr. Brooks, we deeply regret what happened. We are implementing mandatory bias training and community engagement reforms." She listened quietly. Officer Grant sat at the far end of the room, eyes lowered. When the chief finished, Alana surprised them all. "I don't want him fired," she said calmly. Murmurs rippled through the room. "I want him educated. I want him in the community meetings. I want him to see the people behind the assumptions." Officer Grant looked up, stunned. "Accountability matters," she continued. "But so does transformation." Tears filled his eyes, not from fear this time, but from gratitude and shame intertwined. "I don't deserve your grace," he whispered. "No," she replied gently, "but you need it." Months passed. Officer Grant returned to duty, but changed. He attended workshops. He volunteered at youth programs. He introduced himself differently. "Good afternoon," he would say now. "How can I help?" Alana noticed. One Saturday, she found him speaking to a group of teenagers about responsibility and respect. When he saw her, he paused. "This woman," he told them, voice steady, "taught me the most important lesson of my career. Never assume you know someone's story." Alana felt emotion rise in her throat. Afterward, he approached her. "I still think about that day." "So do I," she admitted. "But I think about it differently now," he said. "It was the worst moment of my career, but it forced me to confront parts of myself I didn't want to see." She smiled faintly. "Growth is painful." "Yes," he said softly. They stood there, not friends, not quite, but something new. Understanding. A year later, another emergency call came over the police radio. A child injured in a car accident. Officer Grant was first on scene. He helped stabilize the child until the ambulance arrived. At the hospital, he waited anxiously. Hours later, a familiar figure stepped into the hallway. Dr. Alana Brooks. "The child will be okay," she said gently. Relief washed over him so strongly his knees nearly buckled. "Thank you," he whispered. She looked at him thoughtfully. "You handled yourself well today." "I learned from the best," he replied. She shook her head slightly. "No, you chose to learn." They stood in the quiet hospital corridor, the sterile air heavy with meaning. "Why did you forgive me?" he asked finally. She considered the question. "Because hate multiplies," she said. "But grace interrupts it." Tears filled his eyes. I'll spend the rest of my career proving that day doesn't define me, he said. And I'll keep doing what I've always done, she replied. Saving lives. As she walked away, he understood something profound. The strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who choose dignity when humiliation would be easier. The ones who build bridges where walls once stood. In a quiet driveway on an ordinary afternoon, a terrible moment had unfolded. But from it rose something unexpected. Accountability, growth, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful collapses aren't physical. They happen inside the heart, when pride gives way to truth, and truth gives way to change.